Well, guys, I hate to break it to you, but the top Loch Ness Monster hunter has come out and said that the Loch Ness Monster is a fake. After 52 years, the top Loch Ness Monster hunter gives final verdict. A man who has spent more than 5 decades trying to track down the Loch Ness Monster reckons he's actually been on a wild goose chase. Adrian Shine believes that so-called sightings at the famous body of water in the Scottish Highlands actually have a rather mundane explanation which don't involve the mythical creature. The naturalist, who is 76 years old, has been looking into the large, long-necked monster known as Nessie since 1973, and even led a major sonar exploration in Loch Ness back in 1987. But even though his team was armed with $1 million worth of equipment, they didn't find any concrete evidence that the Loch Ness Monster actually exists. However, he has now revealed that he became skeptical about the existence of the mythical creature he has dedicated his life to finding after believing he had spotted one of its humps, which turned out to actually be a rock. That's a bummer. By the way, this guy looks like Gordon's fisherman. Just an old face surrounded in white hair. Looks like the man that you'd expect to see from Hemingway's Old Man in the Sea. A man who spends his days on the water. I don't know if I want to believe this yet. I don't think this is definitive. I think we can still have hope in the Loch Ness because I do like the Loch Ness. And maybe this guy was paid off by anti-Loch Ness, interests. Always possible. I mean, 52 years just for now for him to change his mind. Come on. But anyway, this gentleman, whose last name is Shine, explained that he believes that the countless sightings of Nessie people have reported are actually the result of ship wakes. He suspects that movements in the water caused by passing boats and the fact that the Caledonian, my friend in Scotland, you can correct me, Caledonian Canal, she'll say it way better than me, runs through Loch Ness have been fooling people into thinking they've spotted the mythical creature. The sightings are caused by ship wakes, he told The Sun. Here, they develop this multi-humped form, and that's what people often see. The longtime Nessie hunters said there are alternate explanations for other phenomena witnessed on the water, too, as well, including why people often believe they've spotted the elusive monster's long neck. So he's got an answer for everything now, all right? Shine says that this is actually something of an optical illusion, which is usually the result of birds gathering on a calm surface. Backing up his theory, Shine went on to explain that he reckons, I like that they keep using the word reckon like this is the Old West. I reckon the Loch Ness is a bunch of rocks in the water. Anyway, he explains that the mythical monster which he supposedly stalks is far too cold for it to live in, while there also isn't enough fish in there for it to survive. How does it know what it eats and what it needs? Maybe it's burying itself underground in the water. Maybe there's other things it's eating. Who knows? I don't like this guy's sudden change of attitude concerning the Loch Ness. As you know, last year I became a real supporter of the Loch Ness theory. I find this a bit suspicious. So I want to look into who's funding this guy. Does he have a new sponsorship we should be worried about? The expert also revealed that after weighing up the loch with a conjurer who studied classical art, the penny dropped for him. So this guy's just got all types of answers, and they're showing an image of Loch Ness, but it's a rock with another little rock formation on top of it. It might be AI for all I know. It looks sort of like the image that everyone knows about the Loch Ness Monster, but it doesn't look like it at all. But they're trying. They were all fakes, and he showed us the explanations Shine said of the alleged sightings. Although most people would seriously get the hump if they spent their life chasing the Loch Ness Monster, only to come to this conclusion, Shine hasn't. That doesn't even make much sense. But I'm rereading it. I think this is either AI or someone who uses AI too much. He also isn't completely closing the door on the mythical monster, thankfully, as he holds out hope that some compelling information could still come to light. Shine added, I've had enormous fun, and any new proof would be wonderful. He previously detailed his theory about how boat wakes were possibly being misinterpreted as Nessie's humps poking out of the water, saying this can create a fascinating illusion, which does remind us of the video we saw last year where they tried to tell us that they had new footage of the Loch Ness monster. I thought that footage was ridiculous, and it looked like just ripples in the water, which is probably something like this. When a vessel is, according to Shine, when a vessel is coming towards you, it is obvious that what the wake is. You see it spreading out from the sides of the vessel, approaching you, or indeed going away from you. But if it's going across your front, it's quite different. You see the individual wave train, the individual wavelengths as solid black humps. They will be short and many for a vessel moving slowly, and they will be longer and fewer as the vessel gathers speed. The wave lines can be almost continuous, and it is fascinating. It is a fascinating illusion. It is very compelling. However compelling it may be to witness, it isn't enough to convince Shine that Nessie is no more than a nautical lore reborn in Loch Ness, which stems from the mythical sea serpents. Well, I'm holding out hope too. I don't want to give up just yet because it's a great story. Now, I have this creature. Didn't get to it yesterday. I'm going to get to it now. Thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoyed last night's episode. And if you haven't checked out my episode with Emily Jasinski, you should. That was a lot of fun on her show After Party. I talked about data centers, and it was a lot of fun. Really appreciate her bringing me on. So, this is from everyone's favorite news outlet, TMZ. But it's true. And honestly, TMZ, Harvey, what's his name? I don't know the guy's last name. I think his name is Harvey, the guy who runs TMZ. They put out a very interesting 9/11 documentary last year before Tucker put out his. And it's interesting. I watched most of it, but it talks about a lot of strange things that pilots and stewardesses were seeing on 9/11. I think it was in New York. And I forget which airport, maybe LaGuardia. But really interesting. So I looked that up if you haven't seen that already. Anyway, Epstein Files, furry mystery. So I'm like, what? There's a picture in the files, if you haven't seen this already, of it looks like a giant fur ball in a trash bag, a black contractor bag. It's weird looking, but let's read about it. As we all impatiently wait for the next batch of the Epstein files to drop, a mystery has surfaced from the old batch, a very puzzling four-legged mystery. They say we think four-legged because in the photo, there's no legs, eyes, or ears, but it could be an animal. Let's see what they say. I thought the photo was bizarre. Not as bizarre as other things in the Epstein files, but anyway, check out this bizarre photo of what appears to be a shaggy dog stuffed or sitting in a garbage bag, which was placed inside a cardboard box. The pic was buried inside a mountain of documents and visual footage released last month by the Department of Justice as part of the now stalled rollout of the Epstein files. And here, they're sharing a lot of interesting images of like everyone who's been photographed with Epstein. And I really do think Epstein knew that one day they were going to throw the book at him. And by throw the book, when I'm putting that in quotes, I mean he also knew that he'd be safe. So I feel like it's he knew part of the plan was to photograph yourself with everybody possible. I think a lot of these people were also blackmailed or also just liked him, even post-conviction. But, there's a lot of photos of people who I feel like I'd like to think they're just there and the photo was taken. But who knows? Honestly, who knows? Because a lot of these people were also with him, seems like quite a bit. But and now there's this whole push to say he wasn't like a pedophile and he wasn't trafficking little kids. But like I just went over, what was it, a week or two ago? if you're reading through the latest batch of Epstein files, he was grooming girls, little girls, 13, 14-year-olds. That is disgusting. And there's no like, they're barely mature. That's a ridiculous statement. They're young girls and they are being groomed by monsters. Okay, very powerful, very wealthy, very connected monsters. It doesn't matter who the monsters are, wealthy or poor. What matters is that these are girls underage and they are being groomed. So like this whole, I'm seeing a lot of people say that, and I find it to be disturbing. Like why we're trying to rebrand the crimes. Clearly, as I've always said, I said it as recently on IRL like a few months ago. No, maybe 2 months ago. It feels like forever. But no one's talking about the really deep ties Epstein had with officials around the world. I mean, people talk about him being maybe Mossad. I think Mossad came to Epstein. I think Epstein deeply cared about Israel. And I think the Mossad came to him and were like, what can you do to help us like overthrow this country? You know, there's a lot of these emails between him and Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel. I'm like, we should be talking about that. And these emails that are showing him helping to pull strings geopolitically, which is as insane as the pedophilia, right? So we shouldn't be undermining or downplaying that part of the story. And I think it's really weird. Is it to help Trump out of this weird Epstein files debacle that he is just completely fumbled through? Or is it something else? You know, I find it really disturbing. And we should not forget that a lot of these victims were little girls. And that's on record. You know, he was convicted of stuff like that. So don't gaslight us. Anyway, the snapshot was overshadowed by all the attention on pics of famous people like Bill Clinton, Chris Tucker, and Mick Jagger, but we dug it up for you now. So what the heck is going on here? While it certainly looks like a dog, the fluff ball could be some other type of animal or stuffed toy or taxidermy. I honestly, as a bit of a taxidermy expert, part of my furniture moving job was we collected lots of taxidermy. And I would hang up, everything, like all types of crazy taxidermy. It does look like taxidermy, but it's not like the kind that you're proud of. It's like stuffed in this bag. It's weird. I don't know why I found this so fascinating, but it's just an extra layer of something disturbing. You know, if you've seen the pictures inside Epstein's New York City townhouse, there's a lot of weird art. I mean, I know I got weird art, but like he has really weird art. It's kind of, it reminds me of a lot of the stuff that they said, who had it? Was it Bolton? No. It's based on the guy's name. But they had a lot of weird art. You know, he's Pizzagate type guy. Tucker talked about it recently too. But they had stuff depicting like bad things being done to children. You're like, you don't like want that in your house. You don't want that at all, honestly. I would not want that. But you don't like display it proudly. The unsatisfying answer nobody seems to know yet in regards to this weird fluff thing. We spoke to Congressman Suhas Subramaniam, I don't even know who that is, maybe I should, who's on the House Oversight Committee, which last month successfully subpoenaed Epstein's estate to release a separate batch of documents. Do I just not know this person for some reason, or did I wake up in a different timeline? He says he's never been given any context for the furry photo or any other Epstein images that have come to light. He tells us it looks like a dog, but he's unsure if it's dead or sleeping on the trash bag. Now there is one clue. A 2003 Vanity Fair article describes a stuffed black poodle Epstein had on top of a grand piano in his New York City townhouse. I think that's probably right. I think they're probably right there. We did find a photo resembling the pooch in the files, but it doesn't seem to be in the same dog in the mystery pic. I think it could be, honestly. So real quick, two things before I move on to some other stuff. Who is Suhas? Okay. I've seen him. Didn't know his name. All right. He's real. I think I'm in the same timeline. You guys, same timeline? We're good? We're here? All right. And I just wanted to pull up. I was reminded of Vanity Fair and Epstein. I don't know if you guys know this story, but I first saw this story. I saw an article about the Vanity Fair story about maybe a year ago, maybe more. I'm trying to find the last one. But anyway, this is one from January 5th, 2024. Jeffrey Epstein went, and it's from the Post, the New York Post. Jeffrey Epstein went to Vanity Fair's office to suppress truth about his crimes. Jeffrey Epstein showed up in Vanity Fair editor-in-chief Graydon Carter's office in 2002 during a furious bid to suppress the truth about his sick sexual practices, which the magazine did not publish, which is always interesting to me. The pedophile, look how they talk about him. The pedophile went straight to Carter after reporter Vicky Ward had spoken to two of his victims, Annie and Maria Farmer, who had blown the whistle on his sordid practices. Maria Farmer was a New York Academy of Art grad student, 25, when Epstein took her on as an art scout. She told Ward how, in 1996, Epstein sexually assaulted her at billionaire Victoria's Secret owner Les Wexner's Ohio home, and Ghislaine Maxwell held her hand. So for those who don't know, Les Wexner has never been publicly questioned about this stuff. Maybe not even privately. I don't know. But, he's, I think, Bed Bath & Beyond, Victoria's Secret. I think he made Epstein the executor. Her sister, Annie, told Ward that Maxwell sexually assaulted her by groping her when she was just 16 and trained her to give Epstein foot massages, which is very similar to the 14-year-old story we got from the deposition in the latest release of Epstein files. A lot of weird, massaging things between Ghislaine, Epstein, and whatever young girls they procured. Epstein's encounter with Carter came in the run-up to Vanity Fair publishing his profile of him in March 2003, without any references to the Farmer's revelations under the headline, "The Talented Mr. Epstein." Epstein's pressure campaign came into focus Friday after the release of thousands of pages of previously redacted court documents showed that the pedophile's most high-profile victim, Victoria Giuffre, had claimed it was former President Bill Clinton who had tried to censor Vanity Fair. An email in that trove showed that she wrote, "When I was doing some research into Vanity Fair yesterday, it does concern me that they could want to write about me, considering that B. Clinton walked into VF and threatened them not to write sex trafficking articles about his good friend J.E." Ward told the Post that she believed Giuffre had been mistaken. Carter also said that Clinton had not appeared in his office. This categorically didn't happen. A spokesperson for the former Vanity Fair chief told the Post. I think it would be crazy for a former president to walk into a place like that and do something like that. Honestly, it does make more sense for Epstein to do it. I never heard about Bill Clinton coming to the office, Ward, who now writes Vicky Ward Investigates, said. I think that Jeffrey Epstein got conflated by the time it reached Virginia. Yes, Virginia. Why did they write her as another name earlier? Did they get her name wrong at first? Yeah, they called her Victoria. It's Virginia. Rest in peace. Jeffrey Epstein, while the piece was going through fact-checking, appeared in the office. A fact-checker named Mary Flynn emailed me and said that Jeffrey Epstein was standing in Graydon's office. The email reads, "Bless you. Guess who just appeared in Graydon's office? Jeffrey Epstein." The move came after Epstein's all-out attempt to keep the truth from coming out in Vanity Fair. He and I got very contentious, Ward said. I had put the allegations of Annie and Maria Farmer to him and Maxwell. They went nuclear. He said we would get a witch doctor to put a curse on my unborn children if he did not like the story. When Ward heard Epstein was in the office, she was on bed rest while pregnant. I phoned my editor immediately and said, "What the hell is Jeffrey Epstein doing there?" She told the Post. The idea that he was standing in Graydon's office was appalling. If that's all true, it's appalling. Carter in 2019 told the New York Times that Epstein had turned up in the Vanity Fair offices, but not his own office. As we were closing the story, I'd asked him to pose for photographs, and he showed up at the office one day, and he was sitting in our lobby. Carter, who edited Vanity Fair from 92 until 2017, said, "I don't know how he got there." His spokesperson told the Post Friday, "There's nothing new to comment on." Ward and Carter have feuded over why the farmer's revelations were removed from the story. Carter told The New Yorker in 2022 that multiple executives, including Vanity Fair's legal advisor, did not feel that Ward's reporting would stand up in court and remove the farmer's account as a result. He also said that Ward's reporting was widely distrusted inside the magazine. So there you go. They have their side, and she has hers. And that's all possible, right? That she could be distrusted, that they don't think it'll hold up in court. But looking back now, knowing what we know, and plus his convictions, right? Plus his he was in jail already by the time this was going on. I think so. Maybe it was even before that, actually. I'm going to look that up. But now is like giving a little more weight to her side of things, right? And we also know that ABC killed stories about Epstein. I think it was about, his time with Prince Andrew, right? Let's see here. Just want to make sure I get this right, because this is important. When was Jeffrey Epstein in jail first? All right. So her story was before. So they didn't have that to look to. So her story was before. So he was arrested afterwards in Florida and convicted and got that sweetheart deal. And then we all know he was back in jail like 10 years later. And then they shut the world down with COVID. So they can get away with swapping out a body double so he could go into witness protection. I don't know if they're going to get to the part where he allegedly left a bullet for them too. Ward told the Post, Graydon said, "I did not have enough sources, but I had them on the record. So what else did he need?" Which, that's a tough argument to have within like journalism, because, okay, are the sources anonymous? It does make it tougher. Sometimes you have to protect a source, especially in a thing like this. And how much do you believe in your sources? And you always have to be open about, hey, this is what they're saying. I'm sharing with you. That's all of this. That is all of this. Graydon said, "I'm a SHITTY journalist and my sources were terrible. He employed me for 10 more years. So I shouldn't have been that terrible. So I couldn't have been that terrible." Vanity Fair also abandoned reporting on Epstein in 2007, the year he was first federally investigated for preying on underage girls. Carter's family found a severed cat's head on the porch of their country home in Connecticut. That's what I was thinking. Maybe it wasn't a bullet. Connolly claimed in 2020. No question it was left by Epstein or somebody on his behalf. Maybe that's something to do with to connect it to the last story, right? Something in a bag that's furry. Maybe a bunch of cat heads. That Monday, I came to the office and Graydon was still upset, remembered Connolly, who had been an NYPD detective. He asked if we should still do the story. I said no, it just wasn't worth it. Epstein surrounded himself with people who can be scary if you're not a tough guy. Carter, however, said that he and his wife believed the cat's head was left by aggrieved George W. Bush supporters, and said to suggest that it affected my editorial judgment is wrong. All right, a little less disturbing news. A few weeks ago, at the very beginning of this year, U.S. Customs seizes monkey meat at Chicago O'Hare Airport. I just wanted you guys to be aware of this. The photo is insane. I don't even know if I'd want to show you if I had the ability to, but I'll describe it. It looks like a barbecued monkey. It's been flayed down the middle from the chin all the way down. And its skin has been peeled to either side and then tied around its limbs. So it's like this. It's really crazy. Chicago O'Hare International Airport, one of the busiest travel hubs in the world, made headlines this week after U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials confiscated several illegal and disturbing items from an arriving passenger's luggage, including monkey meat. The traveler, arriving from the Democratic Republic of Congo, was stopped during a routine inspection at O'Hare. Upon examination of their luggage, officers discovered over 11 pounds of pest-infested beans, 17 pounds of unidentifiable plant material, and approximately 4 pounds of dried monkey meat, which was later classified as non-human primate meat. In addition to the monkey meat, authorities also seized what they described as mummified small primates. That's what I just described. Has its teeth and everything. The CBP shared images of the items on social media, stating that while the passenger believed the food was permissible, it clearly was not. I wonder if, like, this guy, you must have known from a mile away. Like, that guy, stop him. He has monkey meat and monkey mummies. Let's check that out. All confiscated goods were destroyed, and the traveler was not charged with any crime. I guarantee you someone took that mummified monkey home. Not a doubt in my mind. Under U.S. law, importing bush meat derived from wild animals such as monkeys, antelope, or rodents is strictly prohibited. And you guys know, like, they think a lot of disease comes out of bush meat, like the plague. And here we go. The CDC warns that bush meat, including monkey meat, poses a serious health risk due to the potential presence of infectious diseases and pests. Officials emphasize that any amount of monkey meat or bush meat found at U.S. entry points will be seized and destroyed. Offenders may also face fines up to $250,000 for violating federal import regulations. The incident adds to an already turbulent year for Chicago O'Hare, which has dealt with extreme weather-related flight disruptions, public safety incidents, and ongoing logistical challenges, and now mummified monkeys. I did have this lined up with some other food-related things, but I want to save the food-related things for the end because it just gets more disgusting. And I felt like we should get a little gross. Now that I've broken my fast, I can eat, not eating a lot, but eating just a bit and feeling a lot better. Sounding still a little weird, but like way, way better. My body needed to reset, and it was awesome. Feeling clear, feeling strong, and let's do it. But I did see this, and I always think it's interesting when these stories pop up. The Simpsons, and this is from the New York Post last week. The Simpsons made these alarming predictions for 2026, some of which are already underway. Pop culture oracle, The Simpsons, has predicted more doom and gloom for 2026. In 2026, eagle-eyed viewers are looking at storylines that could be connected to a new type of flu, artificial intelligence taking over jobs, another world war, smart homes, and aliens. I kind of think about The Simpsons the way I was talking about podcasts last week, where like a lot of the predictive programming is injected into very popular cultural moments of the time. So right now we have podcasts. The Simpsons were huge. And like a lot of our generation, we were young being raised on this. So it's like, I think there's a lot of, I know in my heart, I believe that there is an ancient evil, obviously, that's populating this earth and pulling a lot of the strings that we are constantly battling. I think, unfortunately, that evil is also very smart, and they do plan things out. You know, like I was thinking a lot, I keep thinking about Charlie and the assassination. You know, I don't believe that bogus FBI story at all. Never did. And the more time that passes, the less I do, if I can even believe in it less, a negative belief in it. But I think that was very much planned out. And I think not just that, but the aftermath of his assassination was planned out. And what I mean by that is the way the internet exploded into disbelief and belief and became very tribal over that and deconstructing it like it was a new JFK assassination, but with the internet now, that was planned. They knew what would happen. I think down to even putting people in places either there in Utah for the assassination or on the internet to expose, to like amplify videos. Like everything is so manufactured that I think this is what's happening. And it could be that the Simpsons are like that, or were a part of that. Maybe the writers didn't even know, you know? Maybe they did, because they did have Conan O'Brien, someone who I loved Conan O'Brien's show growing up, and I still listen to his podcast from time to time. But he did go to Harvard, you know, and Harvard's a pretty wild place. But, you know, I also think that it's possible for people to be hijacked without them knowing. Maybe not just people, but institutions or films, TV shows, podcasts, books, whatever, where I'm saying like it's possible for the creator of these things to not realize that they've been hijacked, that they're being steered by some ulterior motive, by some outer force. Maybe it's a friend that's not really their friend, someone just pretending to be their friend who's also working behind the scenes to destroy them. Happens all the time, all the time. Like, what was it, Selena, the singer, who's the president of her fan club, killed her? And I think she's even had a closer working relationship with Selena. But like, this is like nothing new. People pretend to be close to you all the time. So we're not only getting like this narrative engineering through significant cultural moments, whether it's The Simpsons, Super Bowl, newspapers, independent media, whatever, you name it, Hollywood, or today with podcasts and how it's moving. And then also, strip away everything we think we know about Charlie and the assassination. People then take advantage of a situation like that. Doesn't matter what they believe happened. But it's like, I referenced it recently with when people say never let a tragedy go to waste, something like that, right? Like we've heard, what's his name? Rahm Emanuel say it. Clinton said it. So there's always that happening as well in the periphery or right on top of these bad situations. So we kind of have to juggle all those things at once in this insane world. Anyway, even if some of the fan predictions aren't correlated with specific events or dates, viewers have taken notice that some could be hinting at imminent events. I take more stock in there being predictive programming in something like The Simpsons than I do in that Baba Vanga lady, the blind oracle who called like aliens, said that aliens would be here at such and such time in World War III. I don't believe in that so much, but I do believe that very smart and very evil people are able to somehow get ideas across and amplified to the public through various forms, various mediums. For example, in season 23, episode 17, Them Robot, AI starts to take over the jobs of the people in Springfield. The 2012 episode sees Mr. Burns replacing his employees with robots who turn on him, and then his laid-off workers have come to his rescue. An October analysis, ironically based on ChatGPT findings, found that artificial intelligence and automation could wipe out nearly 100 million jobs in the U.S. over the next decade, including white and blue-collar jobs. The agricultural revolution unfolded over thousands of years. The Industrial Revolution took more than a century. That report said, artificial labor could reshape the economy in less than a decade. A recent Stanford University report also found that U.S. job postings for young adults aged 22 to 25 have plunged 13% since 2022 across AI-exposed industries. Just some thoughts on the AI stuff. I talk a lot about like an apocalyptic vision of this AI dystopia. I think we can coexist with AI as a tool. We can use it for research purposes, although we always have to fact check that, like we would any book. I do not like that a lot of artists are turning to AI in lazy ways. I think there could be ways that could make artists better, maybe by running through different ideas through AI and getting inspiration from that. It's like a back and forth, but not using AI for the final product. I can see how it could be a tool in that regard as a collaborator in the drafting process. I obviously don't like the idea of the surveillance state helping to grow AI and then using AI to cover us in its omniscient, total awareness, control of the world. I don't like that. I don't like AI Lavender that Israel is using in Gaza, which is using Palantir. The facial recognition stuff, whether it's Clearview or the stuff they're using on drones in Ukraine, don't like that. But there's so many abstract dimensions to just what AI is and what it will be. But what I do know, I was talking about last night with Emily on her show, is that you can't deny the fact that they are trying to take over the physical world with their data centers. And they lie about the jobs. Right and left, they lie about the jobs. These data centers will bring in many jobs to your communities. That's a straight up lie. First of all, from the research I've been doing, I was thinking, I guess naively, that they'd hire local people to build the data centers, but that obviously didn't make sense to me. After a while, I'm like, wait, not just anyone can build a data center, and they probably don't have data center builders everywhere, obviously. So they fly in most of these people, so the temporary jobs, and then they leave. And then the data centers are run by like 20 to 50 people, depending on the size of the data center. So, and those people aren't going to be local. So it eats up the farmland. It doesn't give anyone jobs. It eats up, for now, water and electricity, although they are trying to mitigate that, I know, and there's a lot of discrepancies between water usage, but it depends on the size of the data center. And they're looking into Bill Gates just purchased 3 Mile Island, and he's using one of the reactors that was not involved in that disaster that happened. What was it, in the 70s or 80s? But it's wild. They're trying to use more nuclear energy to power AI data centers. A lot of them right now are using coal and natural gas. So, and they're also trying to send data centers to space. But it's going to be interesting because I saw something Emily pointed out last night on her show, is the fact that there have been a decrease in data centers being put up because locals are protesting so much, which is great. I'm down with that. But in West Virginia, they passed this really weird bill last year that cuts out any ability for anyone to say no to the data centers. It is also very inviting to data centers because of the massive tax breaks, which most states do. But one thing that West Virginia does a little differently, and this is from a Republican governor who I like because on day one, he did bring back religious exemptions for vaccines, which is great if you don't want to vaccine your kids. But now might even be rolled back. So it's ridiculous. But anyway, he's big on data centers. And this bill makes it so that a very small amount of taxes, property taxes from the data center any data center in West Virginia will go back to the local community, but will go right to the state level. If there's any pro to these ridiculous death machines that they're building all over the world, it would be that they can maybe funnel some money back into the local communities. Like West Virginia is not a very rich state. A lot of poor people, a lot of bad drugs. It needs help. I love West Virginia, but it's forgotten, I guess. But it's great, man. It's so great, and it's great for freedom. But and there's a very wealthy area, right outside of DC where people go to, But I wish they wouldn't take advantage of these people. I was like, oh, okay, maybe then the data centers could give some money back to the people who've lost their farmland because of it. But not the case in West Virginia. And I imagine there'll be other states fairly soon that will adopt that type of bill. Another follow-up before I get back to The Simpsons I wanted to do, because it's kind of related to farmland, and they're talking about this last thing. Where was it? In this article about The Simpsons, it talks about how AI is going to take over white and blue-collar jobs, which reminded me of Mark Andreessen, who he's a guy with like a giant egg-shaped head. He's a venture capitalist. He says that AI won't erase the jobs of venture capitalists. Of course, he is safe. He is going to be fine. This is like a Peter Thiel friend, the Elon Musk friend. He wrote the Techno Optimist Manifesto, which is like the inverse of the Unabomber's manifesto. So it's trash. It's filled with lies, in my opinion. But Andreessen, I think, is also disgusting because him and Reid Hoffman have this thing called Forever California, where for the last few years they tried buying up all of this farmland, like 70,000 acres of farmland in northern California. And the farmers refused. I've talked about this a lot. Farmers refused, and in retaliation, Andreessen and Hoffman sued the farmers and then dragged them through this horrible lawfare for years. The process was so bad that the farmers lost so much money, they had to sell the farms. So Andreessen got what he wanted, Hoffman got what he wanted, there's others involved. And they acquired 70,000 acres for their private city. So this is like a privately owned city that you can go live in. But I think that is despicable. Despicable behavior. Back to the story. A 1994 episode titled Deep Space Homer might have predicted the rise of space travel for the general population. In this season 5 episode, Homer Simpson is chosen by NASA to go into space with astronaut Buzz Aldrin, my favorite actor, in an attempt to make space travel more appealing to the average man. Meanwhile, in real life, an all-female crew, which included Katy Perry and Gayle King, went on a brief trip to space on Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket as part of a space tourism flight, sparking the idea that space tourism could happen in the near future. But everyone knows that was fake. That didn't really happen. She was just on an airplane, a very high up airplane. Katy Perry is not an astronaut. If Katy Perry is an astronaut, we're all astronauts. If you've been on an airplane, you're an astronaut. The Simpsons may have also seen into the future with the new super flu strain that's soaring in the U.S. The U.S. is experiencing its highest infection rate in nearly 3 decades, according to flu statistics released by the CDC on Monday. And New York seems to be getting hit the hardest, with the highest number of flu hospitalizations recorded in a single week. Remember when the flu didn't happen during COVID? It just disappeared. And then all of a sudden there was COVID. Almost as if COVID was just the flu, or just totally fake altogether. I did get sick with something at that point, but I don't know exactly what it was, because I think it was fake. It felt fake. Like it moved around my body in such a fake way. Like I had this headache, and then it was in my elbows. Or maybe it started in my elbows, actually, then moved up to my head. And man, that was gross. Whatever that bioweapon was. There, Marge in Chains, an episode that aired in 1993, sees a fictional virus spreading throughout Springfield after it came from Japan in shipping crates. The episode was a popular one that resurfaced during COVID-19, especially as it depicted how the disease caused a societal breakdown and how the town caused an uproar as it searched for a cure. The other thing to think about here is that so many of the things we live through as humans in our little time that we have here is cyclical. These things are always happening, and in very similar ways. Like I was just listening to this old, I think it was an R.C. Sproul video, and he was talking about Ecclesiastes, and there's a season for everything, and if you haven't read Ecclesiastes 3, chapter 3 is amazing. But he talks about talking to a friend who was given a newspaper from the day he was born. So like 40 years had passed. This is an old video because RC is now long gone, and this is a young RC talking. But you look at the newspaper and you flip through it, it's the same things. It's almost the same names, in a lot of the stories. Little things change here and there. Obviously, we have different problems now, crazier problems. We have people who don't know how to define what it means to be a man or woman, which is a really weird existential issue. But a lot of the same wars, same names, same countries, same fears. It goes in cycles. So it might not be. I think there actually is predictive programming happening in these things, but it's also that people understand that this happened before, it'll happen again, History rhymes. I believe they attribute that to Mark Twain, but who knows? They attribute a lot of things to Mark Twain. My favorite quote is from Abraham Lincoln. Don't believe everything that you see on the internet. The beloved animated show, which first aired in 1989, has also shown what it would be like to live in a smart house. In Season 13, Episode 1, Treehouse of Horror, the Simpson family moves into a voice-controlled house that manages their day-to-day lives. But the longer they live there, the more threatening the smart house becomes. Sounds about right. This could be a warning, as a new survey found that more than 8 in 10 American homes now contain smart tech such as refrigerators, doorbells, and robot vacuums. Shoot them all. The vacuums, the robots, that is. Again, though, there have been sci-fi writers like Asimov writing about stuff like this, 60 years before this was happening. There have been quite a few recent theories about alien life, and a 1997 episode titled The Springfield Files could be giving fans some insight into the future. In the episode, the FBI agents come to investigate an alien that Homer claims to have seen in the woods. There have been several references to World War III in the run of The Simpsons, and fans are taking note this year. In 1995, the Lisa's wedding episode shows her fiancé, Hugh Parkfield, in the future, talking about World War II with Homer and Bart, as well as succeeding global conflict. I think they're meant to write World War III, since World War II allegedly happened already at this point, unless they're in a different timeline. Another instance in a 1987 short shows Homer persuaded that World War III has already started, demanding that his family take shelter. Homer was also convinced that the world was ending in an episode titled Thank God It's Doomsday, which aired 2005. Well, there you have it. The Simpsons, oracle or just tapped into the cyclical nature of insane human nature. What it means to be a human on this crazy planet. Now, what is next? What is next? Am I still recording? Great. All right, so I told you. Let me see what I want to get to first. So there's the food thing. There's the food thing. But while I have you here, while I pull up these tabs and get them all in the right order, thank you guys for commenting on the show, for liking it, for being subscribed to the channel, for tuning in, for sharing it. You can clip it. I love it. You guys are the best. I appreciate it. It's awesome seeing you guys show up to the show. We've gone through some crazy obstacles over the past 5 years, haven't we? Well, anyway, let's round this out with some food. If you're eating, you might not want to eat right now, unless you're into this sort of thing. You weirdos. If my computer allows me to, it's now frozen on an image of bugs in chopsticks. I think my computer's about to explode. That would be great. Chicago man addicted to eating live bugs cuts back after health warnings. This is a real blow to the, eat bugs people. You'll own nothing, Carlos, a 26-year-old from Chicago, has a unique habit. He regularly eats live bugs like mealworms, cockroaches, and crickets. His unusual eating behavior is featured in an episode of TLC's My Strange Addiction, where he describes the taste of mealworms as similar to buttered popcorn and compares crickets to vegetables. He even claims the insides of cockroaches taste like custard. This is just from last week. Carlos says he enjoys the sensation of live bugs squirming in his mouth, calling it a satisfying and primal experience. He admits he's been fascinated with eating bugs since childhood and now consumes up to 100 live bugs a day. According to the show's producers, that adds up to around 30,000 insects a year, roughly the weight of a turkey. I like how they made that image for you. Don't worry. He's got a girlfriend, and they have a child together. His partner, Ashley, who shares a child with him, initially found his bug-eating habit quirky, but over time, she's grown concerned about the financial and health risks. Carlos spends money on insect mixes from specialty pet stores, and Ashley believes the habit has become a harmful crutch. You say? Despite the risks, Carlos says eating live bugs gives him a sense of control and a feeling of power over the insects. However, a visit to the nurse practitioner raised red flags. She warned that eating live bugs, unlike the cooked insects consumed in many cultures, can expose people to harmful bacteria and parasites. These could potentially lead to infections, organ failure, or even neurological damage. I mean, is this one of these lizard people? This guy? Is that a lizard person? Carlos admitted that he sometimes experiences heart palpitations and wasn't fully aware of the possible health consequences. Although he still likes the taste and sensation of eating bugs, he now says he's cut back significantly. Since filming the show, Carlos told the Post that he no longer eats live bugs intentionally and that the behavior was limited to a specific time in his life. Intentionally. If it crawls in his mouth while he's sleeping, I mean, he's not going to say no. Can't say no to that, Carlos. All right. Now, the New York Post is trying to sell me things. So we have that. And I just thought this would be a nice little pairing, considering that I've broken my fast, easing back into eating. But feeling good despite my voice coming and going. Feeling really, really, really good. This is from last week as well. I like this one. The worst cleanses and fasts throughout history. One required a parasite to hatch in the intestines. It just seems like these were stories about diets from the world in Beetlejuice, which is interesting to me. After all those holiday indulgences, many people feel the need to hit the reset button with a detox or cleanse for a fresh start fix. These practices date back thousands of years. Think Cleopatra's sour donkey milk baths to preserve beauty and youthfulness. You don't say. Dr. John Harvey Kellogg's yogurt enemas to flush the bowels, and even the grape cleanse to remove toxins and heal maladies. All right, don't get any ideas here, okay? Talk to your shaman before you do any of this. The restrictive regimen inspired by the 1927 book The Grape Cure involves consuming just water for 2 or 3 days, followed by a grapes-only diet for a week or two. Why didn't I read this earlier? Author Joanna Brandt was convinced that the plump purple fruit cured her stomach cancer, but medical professionals dismissed her notions as quackery. Great word. Though there are health benefits to the water, fiber, and antioxidants in grapes, there's no proof that eating them cures cancer. Plus, there's a significant risk to subsisting on grapes or shoving yogurt into your rectum. You guys, I hope you already know that. Registered dietitian Gianna Di Maria, an instructor of medicine at New York Medical College, warns that cleanses can lead to dehydration, electrolyte imbalances, malnutrition, reduced energy, and disordered eating behaviors, among other problems. The biggest misconception is that the idea that it will reset your body and essentially eliminate or remove the negative effects that poor dietary habits have caused on the body, she told the Post. Your liver is constantly detoxing your body, even when you sleep. I think fasting is great for you. Look, not everyone can do it. And yes, I know I heard from some of you, maybe you shouldn't do it when you're sick. Agreed. If I were sicker and didn't just have this one thing, I probably would have waited. But I think it's really, really helped me. And looking forward to doing it again and doing it longer. And there's been like this anti-fasting movement amongst like the experts. But I think it's great for you. And I do think it will reset you. But maybe you shouldn't do some of these that we're about to read. This is the tapeworm diet. Imagine this worm welcome. Haha, the New York Post. The tapeworm diet, which originated in the late 19th century Victorian era, involved swallowing a pill or capsule filled with a live tapeworm, egg, or larva. The hope was that the parasite hatched and grew inside the intestines, gobbling extra calories in food to achieve a slim waist. At best, They're just dropping this word in there like you already know what it is. But cestode consumers experienced severe malnutrition and anemia. Infections were common. The unluckiest dieters died or had a tube with bait inserted into their throat to try to lure the worm out. Imagine that. Like, we've got to catch the worm. What do they do with those worms? Where are those worms? Where are those worms today? And this is the cascade enema. Enemas injecting fluid into the rectum to stimulate pooping and clear the lower colon date back at least to 1500 BC, when Egyptians immersed themselves in the Nile River and used a hollow reed to usher in the water. Ancient Egyptian medical texts also described inserting the fluid with a reed attached to an animal skin bag or bladder. The enema underwent... Oh, before I continue, I mean, I'm kind of like making faces about that, and that's ridiculous. But we already know now. Like Ozempic is... What is that, like lizard urine or something? I forget. I saw 7 C's post about that. It's made of... Maybe it's lizard venom. Some weird Gia monster venom or something. Like, we are doing things now that are depraved and crazy, like those surgeries a lot of like women are getting in Hollywood. I forget what it's called, but they like remove all this stuff and it makes their face look ridiculous. In the future, we'll look back on these days and they'll be like, wow, it was really barbaric. Meanwhile, they're doing their own version of modern barbaric things to themselves. The enema underwent a dramatic makeover. That's a sentence I've never expected to hear. At the turn of the 20th century, when hygienist Charles A. Tyrrell developed the JBL Cascade device. The JBL stands for Joy, Beauty, Life. Or as we've rebranded it today, Live, Laugh, Love. Brave souls sat on a rubberized bag filled with antiseptic tonic to alleviate intestinal blockages in the hopes of curing appendicitis, typhoid fever, paralysis, and rheumatism. Doctors use enemas to relieve severe constipation and prep the bowel before colonoscopies, but there's no scientific evidence that enemas remove toxins or rid the body of disease. How's this one? Borax bathing. Borax, yes, the laundry booster, is being added to water, coffee, or smoothies to lower inflammation, improve joint pain, and reduce fluoride buildup. This was a recent one. This is a TikTok trend in 2023. People are also soaking in borax to remove heavy metals, radiation, parasites, and toxins. All right, I'm going to try it. That's it. You heard it here. I'm doing it right now. But experts warn that ingesting borax can cause severe gastrointestinal distress, kidney failure, and even death, while bathing in it can lead to rashes, intense itching, and skin peeling. All right, maybe I won't do it. Healthcare providers have long used activated charcoal to treat poisonings and medication overdoses because it prevents the gastrointestinal tract from absorbing certain toxins. Activated charcoal became popular as a detox agent in 2014 when Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop spotlighted charcoal lemonade from an LA juice bar and had as a great cleanse option. Soon, activated charcoal was added to everything, including matcha lattes, ice cream, and even croissants. I remember seeing a lot of people have it in like facial stuff and like hair stuff. One problem is that not only does activated charcoal trap toxins and poisons, it also binds to essential nutrients, vitamins, and minerals, potentially leading to deficiencies over time. It tastes as good as it gets. This is for cabbage. The high fiber and excessive water in this 80s and 90s crash diet is supposed to cleanse the digestive system by flushing water, reducing bloating, and promoting pooping. The cabbage soup diet can trigger fast weight loss, but over the long term, it can lead to gas, cramps, fatigue. All right, we know that. I'm just going to say you got to fast. You just got to fast. I think that's important. If you can do it, you should fast. Do it when you're not sick. Typically, unless you're like with cancer. And then I've been reading a lot of people's accounts of fasting with cancer, and a lot of really awesome stories from that. All right. Before I end this up, because I'm going to have to go take care of this kid. I want to make sure I get the right one here. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I'm going to close out today with Ecclesiastes 3. All right? For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Ecclesiastes 3. That's 1 through 8. All right, guys, thanks for joining us tonight. Appreciate y'all. Please do leave a comment, help boost that algorithm. Much love to everybody. Very grateful for everyone showing up. And I will see you all tomorrow. Stay healthy. Read your Bible. See you then. Later.